All right, I'd like to call the January 10th, 2022 Shoreline regular meeting to order. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mayor Scully,
Present.
Deputy Mayor Robertson,
Here.
Councilmember Ramsdale,
Oh, present.
Councilmember Mork,
Present.
Councilmember McConnell, Councilmember Povey,
Here.
Councilmember Roberts.
Here.
I'd like to proclaim that today is in honor of Martin Luther King Jr. Day, and in keeping with our COVID protocols, I no longer read the proclamations out loud, but the full text is available on the agenda. Next up on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. Are there any requested changes? Seeing none, the agenda is approved. Next up is the report of the city manager, Ms. Terry.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, here's the graph that nobody wants to see, but we continue to hear, and we can see it reflected here on this graph, that the extremely transmissible Omicron variant continues to push King County's rate of COVID-19 cases significantly higher than at any other point in the pandemic. At our meeting last week, the reported daily average number of cases in King County was just under 3,500 per day. And today it is up to 4,600, just a little over 4,600 per day. The county's rates of new COVID hospitalizations are now significantly higher than at any other point in the pandemic, with 52 hospitalizations a day. And thankfully, deaths remain low at this time, but are increasing. Shoreline's case rate has also increased. We are now averaging 103 cases per day. And so we continue to ask members of our community to follow the guidelines that we've been advocating for a number of years. And many of our community members are doing this. While vaccines have been extremely effective in preventing serious side effects of COVID-19 in those who are vaccinated, with the Omicron variant, even those who are vaccinated and boosted can become infected and spread the infection to others. Dr. Dushin, the public health officer for King County, says we can't rely on vaccination alone when transmission levels are this high. We need to use multiple layers of protection. And so they're continuing to ask people to wear a high quality, close fitting mask, such as an N95, KN95, or KF94. Disposable surgical masks are the next highest recommended alternative and are preferable to cloth masks. Also, please avoid crowded indoor settings, maximize indoor air quality with ventilation. And if you have symptoms, please get tested and then stay home and away from others. Testing capacity has become strained, and some testing locations are now limiting their tests to those who have symptoms of COVID-19 or having known contact with someone who has tested positive. Please do not go to emergency rooms for testing, as this has impeded their ability to care for those with medical emergencies. And if you have not yet been vaccinated, we urge you to do so. If you are eligible to receive a booster, we encourage you to get one, and you can schedule vaccine appointments by contacting your health provider or visit covidvaccinewa.org for other available locations. The City Council voted to place a bond measure on the February 8th, 2022 special election ballot for park improvements and park land acquisition. We are holding a series of factual informational presentations on the measure. You can join us for an online community information session on Tuesday, January 11th at 7 p.m. or Thursday, January 13th at 12 p.m. and again at 7 p.m. You can find more information about Proposition 1 on the city's website at shorelinewa.gov/Prop1. Some public reminders. There will be a hearing before the hearing examiner on Tuesday, January 18th at 7 p.m. And this is regarding a preliminary formal subdivision application. And the next Planning Commission meeting will be held virtually on Thursday, January 20th at 7 p.m. And to get more information, you can go to shorelinewa.gov/calendar. Also, in recognition of Martin Luther King Jr. Day, City Hall will be closed on Monday, January 17th, and there will be no council meeting that evening. The next council meeting following tonight's meeting will be held on Monday, January 24th. And now it's my pleasure to introduce Randy Witt, our Public Works Director, who has some information to share about a great reaccreditation process that the Public Works Department has recently gone through. And he'll also make an introduction of one of our guests tonight. And so I just want to say how proud I am of our Public Works Department for being reaccredited by the Association of Public Works. And I know they've worked very hard on this. So I will turn it over to Randy.
Mr. Witt, you're muted, and it looks like it's on your end.
And
There we go.
Sorry, thank you. As Debbie mentioned, the city continues its status as an American Public Works Association accredited agency, and we're really proud of this nationally recognized achievement. It's our second accreditation, or our first reaccreditation, depending on how you want to look at this. And although the accreditation focuses on public works, and the public works is the center of the American Public Works Association process, it is a citywide effort. And I want to acknowledge that all the departments of the city had some hand in this effort. So to present this recognition to the city, I'd like to introduce Tina Nelson, who is on the board of directors of the American Public Works Association. She's the Region 9 representative, which covers our area. She's also reasonably local. She works over for Kitsap County and will join us now. Tina?
Thank you so much, Randy. And good evening, Mayor, council members, city managers, everybody else that's listening in on this, this Monday night. I appreciate this invitation and this opportunity to say a few words. Public Works is my passion. Representing the APWA is an honor. And one of the privileges of being on the National Board of Directors are these opportunities to get to connect with others about APWA. So what is APWA? The American Public Works Association was formed in 1937, and it's a not-for-profit international organization of more than 30,000 members that are involved in the field of public works. APWA serves those 30,000 members by promoting professional excellence and public awareness through education, advocacy, and exchange of knowledge. APWA is headquartered in Kansas City, has an office in Washington, D.C., and 63 chapters in 97 branches throughout North America. And here in our state, we have one chapter, the Washington State chapter, one of the largest, very active chapters in the organization with about 1,500 members. I have been in the PWA, we say PWA, public works profession for 30 plus years. Serving the public and serving the public well has always been and still is my goal. Public Works has many responsibilities, and the ability to serve well comes with a well-organized approach, and accreditation is a huge step in that direction. It takes an effort to get there, but it sure brings back dividends. I happen to work, as Randy was saying, for an agency that is also accredited. So I do know firsthand what it takes, but also the benefits to get there. So what is accreditation? Accreditation is the mark of professionalism, indicating that a public works agency, the city of Shoreline, has made the commitment to continuous improvement in delivery of public works operations and services in the community of Shoreline. The accreditation recognizes that the department's policies and procedures and practices have been evaluated by experienced public works professionals and being compared to practices and policies that are internationally recognized throughout the entire North America. The benefits to point out is it is increased efficiency. Everything is organized in one place. And that means that you can improve on your processes. Succession planning, if somebody new comes in, you have it written down, you know your policies and procedures. And it also requires continuous improvement. New things come around. I want to say a great, huge thank you to the City Council, to the mayor, and the city manager for supporting your Public Works Department in this work and recognizing their staff for setting a great example of service to those that count on their services, those that live and work in the city of Shoreline. Now, this is an opportunity to recognize those individuals that have really made the difference in this reaccreditation. And we've got, first of all, and most of all, your accreditation manager, Ariana Grill, and then Lance Newkirk, your utilities and operations manager, Teresa Yunke, who is your city engineer, and then of course, your public works director, Randy Vitt. Thank you so much for this opportunity, and I appreciate very much to get a chance to visit with you guys tonight.
Thank you, Tina. And now, Mr. Mayor, this is where you would come off the podium and get a photo op with the plaque and the board of director member. But thank you guys for your time tonight.
Thank you. And Mr. Wood, if you want to memorialize with a screenshot, by all means do. So thank you, Ms. Nelson, and thank you, Mr. Wood, and congratulations to the entire Public Works team. That accreditation process is not easy, I know, and you've also had a few challenges just keeping the city operational in the last few weeks. So thank you again for all your hard work. Next up on the agenda is council reports. Are there any council reports this evening? Councilmember Mork.
I attended the first meeting of the Regional Water Council as part of the SCA this term. And that we elected the chair and vice chair, and that we'll be moving forward as we think about wastewater and stormwater issues.
Thank you. Are there other council reports? All right, seeing none, I attended the North End Mayors meeting, which is just a chance for the North End mayors to meet virtually and talk about what's going on in our various cities. And I also want to take this opportunity to ask council members if they would be willing to participate in a planning commission interview process. We had some vacancies in the planning commission, including its former chair, now Councilmember Mork. And so we need to replace those valuable people. The process would include reviewing applications in early February and then conducting a round of interviews in late February. Deputy Mayor Robertson has indicated an interest, but we need at least 3 folks, or we need a total of 3 folks to do it. If you're interested in serving on that interview committee, can you please just send either me or City Manager Terry an email indicating interest, and we'll get it sorted from there. And with that, next up is public comments. I understand there are 2 people signed up. Ms. Similchick-Smith.
That is correct. Our first speaker is Jackie Curley.
Yes, hi, good evening. I'm Jackie Curley, a longtime Shoreline resident. Just wanted to speak for purposes of consistency and transparency regarding the enhanced shelter. Again, as I understand it, things are operating relatively smoothly with the shelter. And again, I do hope for the best case success for all the residents that are enjoying the benefits of that shelter. And I would like to again advocate or encourage the city to provide a report for the public just to see more detail on shelter operations. Again, I'm not attached to how that report happens, be it in an upcoming newsletter or other avenue, but it would be great to have an update that's more official to get a sense of how things are working and where things could be improved. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Curley.
The next speaker is Tom McCormick.
Hello, council members. I'm Tom McCormick, Shoreline resident. As explained in 2 emails that I sent to you earlier today, our 32-acre saltwater park is larger than previously thought. In addition to what's shown on the King County parcel viewer, Saltwater Park includes almost 10 acres of beach and tidelands north and west of the park. That's a huge increase. 10 acres. So now Saltwater Park becomes 42 acres instead of 32 acres. This means, more importantly, that when families walk north along the beach, they're walking mostly on city-owned beach and tidelands. That is, until they reach the privately owned beach parcel located immediately south of the bulkhead at the southern end of 27th Avenue Northwest, also known as Apple Tree Lane. This privately owned 2.5 acre, totally unbuildable beach parcel is all that stands between Saltwater Park and 27th Avenue Northwest. Council members, please take steps to acquire this privately owned beach parcel under threat of condemnation for the public's benefit. The parcel has an appraised value of $107,000, according to the King County's Assessor's Office. By acquiring this beach parcel, the city will be taking a solid first step toward implementing the comprehensive plan policy that calls for additional beach access. In particular, I look to Natural Environmental Policy 34, which calls upon the city to, quote, provide additional public access to Shoreline's natural features, including the Puget Sound shoreline. Council members, let's do this. Let's take this big first step and open the beach to more and more of the public through as many possible access points as possible. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. McCormick. Next up on the agenda is the consent calendar. Deputy Mayor Robertson.
I move approval of the consent calendar.
A second, approval of the consent calendar.
All right, Ms. Similchick-Smith, will you conduct the vote?
Mayor Scully,
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Robertson,
Aye.
Councilmember Poby,
Aye.
Councilmember McConnell,
Aye.
Councilmember Roberts,
Aye.
Councilmember Ramsdale,
Aye.
and Councilmember Mork.
Aye.
All right, the consent calendar passes unanimously. Next up is item 8A, which is our study session related to the Shoreline School District's ballot proposition number 1. Ms. Terry, would you like to introduce the speakers?
We'd be delighted to. Tonight, we have both Superintendent Susana Reyes and Deputy Superintendent Marla Miller to do a presentation on the 2 levy renewals that will be on the February ballot for the Shoreline School District. I will turn it over to them for the presentation.
Debbie, this is Christina, and I was going to start us off.
Okay.
Okay, great. So good evening, Council. Jessica, I see that Ms. Miller is here as a panelist, but I'm not yet seeing Dr. Reyes. So if there's a way that you can.
As a panelist right now.
Perfect, thank you. So thank you, Council. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for having us this evening. Tonight, we are going to be hearing a presentation on the 2 Shoreline School District propositions that were placed on the February 8th special election ballot by the Shoreline School Board back in August of 2021. Proposition 1 is for the replacement of an expiring levy for educational programs and operations, and Proposition 2 is for the replacement of an expiring capital levy for technology improvements and support. So the Shoreline School District is here to provide the full factual information on the 2 propositions and is represented tonight by Dr. Susana Reyes, who is the Shoreline School District Superintendent. And she will go through the factual presentation with you this evening about the expiring levies and be able to answer your questions at the end of her presentation. So with that, Dr. Reyes, I see you here now. Thank you for joining us, and I'm going to pass this over to you.
Thank you so much. Very much appreciate that. Good evening, Deputy or Mayor Scully and council members. I'm happy to be here with you this evening to share this information with you. And Deputy Superintendent Marla Miller is also here with me to assist with any of the questions that you may have. And we can go ahead and advance the slide. I think that's what I do, right? I'm used to just clicking. So as shared, these are 2 levies that are on the ballot. And typically we begin by sharing how there's levies and there's bonds. So levies are for learning and funds are directly connected to our classrooms with our staff and our students in the way we support their learning experiences. Bonds are connected to students, but primarily for school buildings. They can be used for other construction of other buildings in our district. More recently, in 2017, the community approved a bond that allowed for the construction of Kellogg Middle School, Einstein Middle School, Parkwood Elementary, and Edwin Pratt Early Learning Center. Levies provide, as I shared, support for classroom, including classroom staff and support, student programs, regular ongoing maintenance of facilities, technology and transportation, and they require a 50 plus 1% voter approval to pass, where bonds require 60% plus in order for it to pass. Levies, as we know, are local property taxes that provide funds for educational programs, support services, and resources for schools that are not provided by the state. In the Shoreline School District, this is equal to about 20% of our annual operating budget. The funds support numerous areas of our school district, including curriculum, safety and security, educational technology, extracurricular activities and programs, and professional development, and more. This year, this next month, Shoreline School District will present 2 levy measures for voter consideration. We currently have 4-year levies for educational programs, operations, and technology, and they will expire in December of 2022. So because they expire, we won't be collecting funds past that date unless we present the levy back to the voters for their consideration and they pass. We are asking voters to consider replacing the 2 expiring levies with 2 new 4-year levies, and ballots are due on February 8th, and they should be in mailboxes within the next week or so. So proposition number 1 is the replacement of the expiring levy for educational programs and operations. Some more specificity around what they provide for in terms of support for our schools that state and federal funding do not cover fully, include special education staffing and instructional programs, highly capable programs and academic support, nurses, family advocates, librarians and counselors, building maintenance, utilities and transportation, extracurricular student activities, including music, drama and athletics, and professional development for staff. Proposition number 2 is the replacement of the expiring capital levy for technology improvements and support. And this levy, the funds from this levy are focused on supports related to technology, including student and staff computers and technology access, software, online subscriptions, resources and access to classroom curriculum, annual maintenance and licensing, equipment upgrades and replacement, staffing, professional development. And then they also support our entire infrastructure, wireless, infrastructure, our district and school websites and network servers. So levy rates and revenue with proposition number 1, the educational programs and operations levy. You can see on this table for every year beginning in the 2023 year, the estimated rate per $1,000 of assessed value is right around $1.48. The estimated revenue that would generate for support of the educational programs would be estimated at about $26 million that first year. Moving into the next 3 years, you can see the rate slightly decreasing with the revenue increasing slightly as well. Proposition 2, the technology improvements and support levy, the estimated rate per $1,000 of assessed value is about 20 cents. And the estimated revenue is right around $3.5 million for each of those years. This slide just provides an example of how a taxpayer can calculate their projected tax, annual tax for both of these levies, and basically taking their assessed value of their property or their home, multiplying it by the two levy replacement proposition numbers that you see next to each of those, on each of those rows, that would provide the calculation for their annual tax. The next slide provides examples of what these levy tax rates could look like for a homeowner. The examples here, oops, let's go back. Yeah, the examples here represent an estimated average tax rate of $1.59 per $1,000 of assessed value for both levy replacement propositions. So for a property that's assessed at, $500,000, for example, a taxpayer would expect to see about $66.25 per month in monthly taxes, or $795 per year. Thanks. And then the next slide here, the white line that you see there should be to the right of 2022, or right between 2022 and 2023. The blue and the green bars that you see represent the local educational programs and operations levy. The green represents the technology levy. So you can see the tax rates there. So from 2022, the current year, and back 3 years, it illustrates sort of where those tax rates have been. And the yellow are the bonds that we're paying off. And so those, as you can see into the future too, they would also be decreasing because we're paying those off. To the right of the white line, you could see the future years, the future 4 years should the levy pass, and how the rates, with the $1.48 being about the average or so, and the 20 cents, they pretty much are very similar, comparable to where we've been the last 3 years and this current year. So really what this graphic illustrates is that they are replacement levies, so it's not a new levy for either of the two. They're very comparable to where we have been, and will allow for the continuation of the same level of supports and services that we're currently offering our students and families. And I believe that might be the last slide. Yeah, thank you so much for that.
Thank you, Dr. Reyes, and thank you for being here, Ms. Miller. Ms. Arsady, would you mind just outlining for us sort of what role, if any, we could have in this process?
Yeah, absolutely. So state law allows the council to take a position on such propositions by following a set of specific procedures. Tonight, like I said earlier, this is right now scheduled just as a factual presentation for council, but should council like to take action and take a position, it would include asking staff to prepare a resolution and allowing time during that meeting where the resolution was presented for public comment for both of these, for both in favor of the propositions as well as against the action. Does that answer your question, Mayor Scully?
Yeah, great, thank you. Is there anything else from staff?
Nope, that would be it for this evening.
Okay, great, thank you. So if anyone has any questions or comments, please raise your hand. Councilmember Ramsdell.
Yeah, Dr. Reyes, thank you so much for that excellent presentation. And I think we're all very proud of the school system in Shoreline. I mean, Shorecrest and Shorewood are consistently in the top 5% in the country for high schools. And so I was kind of looking through the figures, and I was kind of wondering from year to year, from 2022 to 2023, there's increased, the levy amounts to be collected increased by 1.92%. Between 2023 and 2024, the levies increased again by 3.78%. And then between 2024 and 2025, the amount collected in the levy is 4.5%. So my question is, like, what expenses were considered in the school budget to justify this incremental change and percentage increases? And then was there an assumption of inflation part of that equation to increase the budget by that percentage point? Or I'm kind of curious, what were the considerations when increasing the budget by those percentages from year to year.
Thank you, Councilmember Ramsdell. Thank you for the question, and I will defer to my my partner here, Deputy Superintendent Marla Miller, to assist with the response to the question. And I see Marla is here with us.
Good evening, everybody. Included in the calculations is an inflation factor that is provided to us by SPI has projected it for the 4 years of the levy, and so that's built in. We also build in estimates of what we hope our enrollment will be, and many of you will know that we lost some enrollment as a result of the pandemic. Mm-hmm. So very much there are estimates built in for increased enrollment and for inflation.
Okay. All right, thank you very much. The other question I had was for proposition number 2, the levy funds collected between 2022 and 2025 are 3.5 million each year, which is kind of a flat amount. And I'm kind of wondering why there wasn't a kind of incremental increase in the amount collected for the proposition number 2. If you could help me understand that, that'd be great.
Proposition number 2 is essentially replacing equipment that has been purchased with a levy in the past. And we've also seen that many times the equipment, the cost of the devices has actually dropped a bit by the time the new version comes out. Mm-hmm. And so as we look at our expenditure history with the levy, we wanted to stay kind of conservative and represent the amount that we think we'll need to replace equipment, and recognize that often that equipment per device costs a little less than it did the previous time that we purchased it. Mm-hmm.
All right, thank you.
Other questions or comments? Deputy Mayor Robertson.
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you both, Superintendent and Deputy Superintendent, for being here. And I want to say welcome to Dr. Reyes, just welcome to Shoreline. I have not had a chance to meet with you yet, but I hope I get to in the months ahead. And I really just want to thank you both for the work that you're doing. I am a parent here in the district, and I can't imagine what the last 2 years have been like as to be an educator in this time. It's got to be up there with one of the hardest professions to carry out throughout a pandemic. So just a wealth of appreciation for me, for the experience that is created for not just my student, but all students in the city of Shoreline. Thank you for what you're doing here, and I wish you guys luck with the bond. Levy for learning.
Thank
Councilmember, oh, sorry, go ahead. Councilmember Povey.
Thank you, Mayor. And of course, thank you, Superintendent and Deputy, and all the great work that you've been doing. I love the presentation. I'm just curious in relation with equipment. I've really not taken time to look at the school district budget, but do you have equipment replacement reserve so that, possibly we don't have to do an entire overhauling? I know technology, new, assets or new equipment being developed year by year, but I'm just wondering, do you have a replacement reserve for this equipment? Whereas, we just possibly may need a supplement or something. I'm just curious.
The way that school districts are funded is that if we don't have a technology levy, then the general fund that funds all of the classrooms and so on needs to provide that kind of reserve and equipment. So in the technology levy, we actually have about a 6 to 9 month lag between when we expect to replace things and when they do come in. There's a bit of a reserve built in, but I will say that as a result of the pandemic, we were very thankful that we had the technology levy that was able to buy devices and replace devices and deploy devices out into homes. We had a whole network infrastructure that needed to be adapted. And so we used what would have been the next round, if you will, of some of the equipment purchases in order to just maintain the educational program during the pandemic and be able to move from in-person learning to remote learning. So we haven't fully, we don't get down to the point where we've fully spent each year's allocation. With a levy, the funds are collected 1 year at a time. They aren't collected all up front, they come in 1 year at a time. And so we have an opportunity to assess the needs and adapt. And so we kind of changed our plans pretty dramatically when the pandemic came through. And now we're looking forward to perhaps in the next 4 years being able to get back to a replacement cycle. But again, we won't fully commit those funds until we know what the needs are.
Thank you.
Councilmember McConnell.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the presentation. I've heard many of these sorts of presentations, and they're always very detailed and well thought out. I'm sure that there are levy chairs all through the school district. I've been one of them, and we get really excited about supporting the next 4 years. And I do want to say that as somebody who's had 2 kids come through the school district, I'm very proud of the fact that the school district was one of the first school districts that I know of, public schools, that introduced the laptop programs back in 2005 and 2006. I was actually on that committee because I really, really felt it was so important for our public school kids to stay up with the technology so that they can be very competitive. So therefore, my son, who actually had one of the first laptops, he's in finance. He is very, very comfortable with the technology. And my daughter, who was older, asked him where he got his laptop because he knew mom just wouldn't just get him a laptop. And he said the school. We rented it from the school. So it was, I know you had some bumps, but every 4 years I support the levies and bonds in the school district because as you know, Doctor, many of us come to the school district come to the city for the school districts, and then we stay and raise our children. So regardless of the fact that my kids are out of the school district anymore, this is an important piece of our community for quality of education that enhances everything. So I personally will be going on your campaign website and seeing what kind of support you might need, whether it's financial or otherwise. And so good luck to the school district for hopefully the community. You know, they're so gracious that this is an important piece for this community. So I wish you luck, but I think you'll be very successful. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilmember McConnell. Any other council members with questions or comments? Councilmember Mork.
During the pandemic, we all heard of the problems with internet connectivity, and I was wondering, is there any aspect of either of these levies that addresses that situation?
The technology levy includes maintenance and replacement of internet and servers and the parts of the infrastructure that provide that network support. It also supports the website that the district operates, the licensing of the software as well as the hardware to run it. So embedded in the technology levy is the continued operation and replacement maintenance of those facilities. We had during the pandemic a number of hotspots that were hundreds of hotspots that were delivered to families that didn't have good internet connectivity at home. And those hotspots allowed them to operate as a little mini Wi-Fi center. And I think that some of those have been replaced. Others still may need to. We were not sure yet whether we may still need to go back into a remote mode if things don't improve dramatically. So yes, the technology levy does include internet support and replacement as well as maintenance.
Thank you. I think that is so important. And like Councilmember McConnell, my kids also are products of the schools, and the reason I moved to Shoreline is the schools. And I originally, and I strongly support keeping you in the top of the nation category continuing. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Councilmember Mork. Are there any other comments or questions from the council? Thank you. And thank you again, Dr. Reyes and Ms. Miller. Shoreline is certainly a team effort. And we have an independent school district, we have an independent fire department, we have independent other special purpose districts, all of whom work together to make this one great place to live. And I know our experience as a city, I think, is comparable to yours. And that's the sort of the minimum that we get in terms of tax and levy, et cetera, money really isn't enough to give the citizens the services they want. So the city has an every 6-year levy lid lift proposal that's coming up for us this year. And this looks to me as a comparable thing. And it's something that goes absolutely into the framework of what you folks do. And without it, our school district would be dramatically different than it is today. And I agree with Councilmember Mork and everyone else that when we talk to people and we say, what city service do you like best? They always say the schools. We have to say, wait. That's not us. What city service do you want or do you like best? But people really appreciate the schools we have here, along with a lot of other features of the city. And I personally, what I can do to support them, I think I should, and I'm hoping that we as a council can do it as well. So what Ms. Arsity mentioned at the beginning is that the one role we can have in this is that we can choose as a council to endorse these measures. Is there interest from the council in placing this on the next action agenda, which I believe would be on the 24th? Deputy Mayor Robertson.
I'm interested in doing that as a council. And yes, so I would say yes, I am interested, and I would like to be able to just show our support, assuming that there is universal support within the council of the school district's efforts here.
Thank you. Councilmember Mork.
I'm just wondering if it would be meaningful with the ballot being due on February 8th, would we be able to, as a new person, I don't know this, would we be able to do something on the evening of the 24th that would be meaningful for helping to get it passed?
I think that question could be answered by any of the panelists. Would one of you like to address it?
Oh, goodness. I don't know. I've not been in a position like this before. So the ballots are due February 8th. So the 24th is about 2.5 weeks, maybe up to 3 weeks before that. So it provides an opportunity for the community to see another entity in the community who's supportive. So that could be beneficial. But I've not been through this process before, so I wouldn't be able to predict one way or the other. Although very appreciative though, for sure.
Ms. Terry, would you like to address that question?
Yeah, I think Dr. Reyes, obviously, as she stated, this would be before ballots are due. Ballots are mailed on January 19th, so it would be fairly soon after they are distributed. Taking this action would be the only way as a council that you would have a way of making a statement to say that as a council, you are supportive of these measures and for various reasons. So if you are interested in doing that, this would be the way to make that happen. And also, I think it makes a statement of where the council position is.
Thank you. Councilmember McConnell.
Thank you. In the past, I've been on the council where we have endorsed school levies, but we have done it where there was a lot more lead time. So there was some suggestions or recommendations that maybe this isn't as valuable as it has been in the past. But regardless of which way the majority of council wants to go, I personally think that we can all individually support it through whatever website is already up. I haven't had time to go, but those are the ways we can individually do it to expedite support without involving the whole council. But as I said, we have done it in the past pretty regularly. I don't think we've ever had a controversy with the council in supporting both, Props 1 and 2 in the school district. So I would go whichever way the majority of the council wants to go. Thank you.
Any other comments on whether we consider this on the 24th? All right, thank you. I would like to see it considered, and I believe with the deputy mayor, that's at least 2 of us and possibly more. So I would ask that staff does prepare a presentation for us to consider. And these February ones, especially in an election year when we have 3 new council members coming on and a change in the leadership, it's always difficult to get them teed up in time. So I apologize for that. Hopefully in the future we can consider it further in advance, but I'm hopeful that if we do decide to endorse, it will still have some meaning. Is there anything further from either council or the presenters? Awesome. Thank you all very much. And next up is agenda item 8B, which is a discussion of ordinance number 953. This is a discussion item this evening. I believe Mr. Saffron is going to present. And after Mr. Saffron presents, I have a brief statement I need to make regarding the appearance of fairness in the quasi-judicial hearings, but I'll let Mr. Saffron proceed with the staff report first.
All right, thank you, Mayor Scully and Council. It's good to be back in front of the Council. It's been a while. Steve Saffron, Senior Planner with Planning Community Development, and I'm here to introduce the Council to a potential rezone of the 4 parcels currently zoned R12 to a neighborhood business zone in order to develop the 4 parcels into the future. As you can see on the screen, the site is located on North 145th Street. The site has commercial uses to the south and to the east along Aurora Avenue. There are existing townhomes directly to the north with the interurban access to the interurban trail almost directly to the west. Current zoning is shown on the left-hand side. The 4 parcels in question in red are R12, directly adjacent to mixed business zone, and adjacent to the north is R48. To the south is the city of Seattle, which is commercially zoned, and then the proposed zoning are shown there as rezoning from R12 to a neighborhood business zone. So the decision criteria set forth in SMC 2030-320B addresses the criteria for determining whether a rezone should be granted or not. It's these criteria that staff evaluates to make a recommendation to both the hearing examiner and to council. Those 5 criteria, I'll quickly go through those. The first being the rezone is consistent with the comprehensive plan. The comprehensive plan in this case is mixed use 2, which the proposed neighborhood business zoning district is considered an implementing zone for. In contrast, the current R12 zoning district is considered to be an implementing zone of the medium density residential district, and therefore is currently inconsistent with the comprehensive plan. The second criteria is that the rezone will not adversely affect the public health, safety, or general welfare. The subject property is located on North 145th Street corridor, where access to bus service, pedestrian, and bicycle opportunities along the interurban trail, frequent high-capacity bus service along Aurora Avenue, and retail and commercial services are all within a short distance of the site. Higher density townhomes currently exist to the north, and commercial services are present to the east. Redevelopment of these parcels under the proposed neighborhood business zone will be compatible with existing and future development of the area. The third criteria we look at is the rezone is warranted to achieve consistency with the comprehensive plan. So RCW 3678-060 requires that the city's development regulations, which a zoning district is, must be consistent and implement the comprehensive plan. A rezone to neighborhood business will satisfy this statutory mandate, as the current R12 zoning is inconsistent with the comprehensive plan. The fourth criteria, the rezone will not be materially detrimental to uses or property in the immediate vicinity of the subject rezone. The site has been designated for commercial and or mixed use development since the incorporation of the city in 1995. The development of the subject parcel will be required to comply with the city's current municipal code, stormwater, engineering manuals, and other relevant city codes to ensure that the site is developed with the latest building and engineering codes. Future redevelopment may be required to install frontage improvements, which will improve pedestrian and bicycle safety. New development would be required to provide surface water improvements, which would mitigate potential drainage issues around the area. And the new development will be also required to provide sufficient parking on site to mitigate any effects of street or over parking of the area. And then lastly, the rezone has merit and value for the community. As stated, the neighborhood business is an implementing zone for this comprehensive plan designation. This location was chosen for the allocation of the city's population growth, and the rezone will allow the site to redevelop with additional housing opportunities and or jobs. High density residential mixed use have been planned for the area, which locates intense commercial and high density uses to those areas that have a major transportation corridor and out of those low density single family residential areas of the city. In addition, new residential development will require the payment of transportation, park, and fire impact fees, thereby allowing system-wide improvements within the city. And that, there's one additional slide, but that's just saying the hearing examiner did consider this rezone and they did recommend approval. And this is a discussion item tonight. This will be coming back to the council for action on January 24th. And I'm here for any questions the council may have.
Thank you, Mr. Saffron. I need to just interject for a moment. This is a discussion item, which we conduct like any other discussion item, and that you can ask questions of staff and get answers to them. But because it's a quasi-judicial action as opposed to a legislative action, we need to make sure we're following the appearance of fairness doctrine. And that appearance of fairness doctrine requires government decision makers to conduct non-court hearings and proceedings in a way that is fair and unbiased in both appearance and fact. Council members must disclose any communications they may have received about the proposed rezone outside of the record. These are known as ex parte communications and maybe either written or oral communications. There's a checklist up on your screen, and if everyone could take a moment to review it. And at that point, after everyone's had a chance, if you have an ex parte communication to disclose, in other words, someone has talked to you about this matter specifically outside of your review of the record that was developed before the hearing examiner, we're required to disclose that ex parte communication. So if anyone has one after you've reviewed the checklist, please just raise your hand and I will ask you to disclose what that ex parte communication was. All right. Seeing no hands, I do not believe there were any ex parte communications. And so then this opens up and just becomes a regular study session. Are there any council members with questions or comments? Councilmember Ramsdell.
Thank you, Mayor Scully. Yeah, thank you for that excellent presentation, Mr. Zaffron. That was I live in the Westminster Triangle neighborhood, which is that's within that rezone would be in that neighborhood. And whenever I've driven by those four buildings, I always felt that they were like really like inconsistent with the neighborhood or around it. It was just like it seemed kind of there were just a lot of commercial buildings around, a lot of businesses, and then there were these 4 single-family homes like plopped in the north end of 145th. And so I think, I mean, I'm in support of this rezone because I mean, I think it is inconsistent. I think I'd be really excited if there was some commercial activity, whether that's like a small coffee shop on the first floor, and then also providing some more affordable housing, which we sorely need in the region. So I was actually like really encouraged to see this this agenda item for today, and I'm in support of what the hearing examiner is stating in the planning commission. So just want to say, as somebody who lives in the neighborhood, I'd be like, I think it'd be a good thing to see this happen.
Thank you, Councilmember McConnell.
Thank you. I have some comments, but first I have one question, Steve, regarding the parking. The proposed zoning change would require what kind of parking ratio for whatever 60 to 100 units and commercial? I mean, roughly, is it like, I mean, will they have to, whoever builds on it, have to provide pretty much 100% parking for the property? Thank you.
Yeah, the general parking ratio, if they do studio or 1-bedroom apartment units, it's 0.75 stalls per unit. If they do a 2 or 3-bedroom, it's 1.5. So they would have to start there because it's on 145th and really near Aurora. They could have the option of applying for parking reductions, just because it's such a close walk to rapid transit on Aurora. And there's also going to be more rapid transit, hopefully shuttling people to the 148th light rail station. So whoever redevelops the site could potentially get a reduction because of the proximity to public transportation.
Okay, because parking was my only, not even a large issue, but just driving around that entire area. The urban trail is to the west, so there's no access out of that development through what I would call residential in that area. And then that road really just comes out, spills out on Aurora after going past the townhomes. So I would just assume that a smart developer would make sure there was adequate enough parking, at least for what they're going to build, so that it basically has to be financially pencil out for them. So I'm going to leave that up to them. I was like Councilmember Ramsdale had said, the homes there are way past their useful life. Okay, let's not be too dramatic about it, but they're not very impressive. And I'm sure whoever owns the properties, have them for great rentals, but they're single family homes with large backyards that butts up right against the townhomes behind it. And so anything coming up there new would be a huge improvement for the whole area, and even for the townhomes to the north of it. If there was commercial, coffee shops and things, I think there's a lot of potential for just pedestrian traffic for commercial, because the trail is right there as well. I biked on it, and if I knew there was a coffee shop, it's a real quick detour. So I would say that those 4 lots would only be improved by having some new, a 4-story building with commercial on the bottom. So that's really exciting as we, try to have more housing close to, our what do you call it, our metropolitan area, but people don't want to live in Seattle. So come to Shoreline. The other thing let's see, where are my notes? Actually, for some reason, I did a good job cutting to the most important things. Oh, I know. The only one question I had was, and I don't know that it's a requirement. Again, I don't do this for a living, but I'm wondering how dramatically difficult a left turn out of that area going eastbound on 145th, trying to get to Aurora and out of Shoreline. How much of a hindrance that would be, because we don't have any, we have the church down the block and lots of other things. So I imagine anybody going east to Aurora will just have to figure it out. But do you see any problem with maybe not having a right turn only out of there? I don't like doing things like that, the developments, and I wouldn't personally recommend it as a council, but do you see any problem with residents accessing out of there back to 145th?
Yeah, I think you're correct that Public Works would probably prefer a right turn only, especially with the upcoming 145th corridor project, where there's going to be substantial pedestrian improvements along that frontage. And those sites, once you combine them, there is access the north-south to Whitman. So there's a potential way to exit a development and go maybe north and then access Aurora. But yeah, right turn on 145th would, that would be, I think, would be the only option.
Well, and would that be an option that's mandated by Public Works then later on during the development phase of it?
It would. They would look at the traffic study for whatever project is going to be placed there, then determine what the circulation should look like at that point.
Okay, yeah, and that was just my only concern for anyone living there, and also just having traffic danger. Because with 60, I think I wrote 60 or 100 units, that's a lot more cars, residential cars coming in and out of that area than even the church would get on a brisk Sunday. So other than that, there isn't a lot of car traffic for that block or two, going to businesses. Even the post office, well, it isn't only right turn only to get out of the post office toward Aurora. Mm-hmm. Although some days I really want to make that turn, left turn, right? So that's the way home, but that's good to know. Thank you very much.
Sure, thanks.
Deputy Mayor Robertson.
Thank you. I'll be quick. And that was a great question about access. So yes, it would be nice to see design guide folks in and out of Whitman, deal with that when the time comes. I will add my voice to those who are supportive of this proposal. I think when we talk about adding density in Shoreline, this appears to be an excellent choice. I've always been sort of fascinated by that particular end of the interurban trail, and that, it's so cute. And I feel like activating it there and bringing some life to it. So what's really most appealing to me is the commercial potential on the ground floor. I hope we get to see that. And I definitely support, anyway, I'm in support. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilmember Poby, and then I'll come back to Councilmember Ramsdell.
Thank you, Mayor. And of course, thank you, Steve, for such a great presentation and supporting materials. I think I have in two parts. The first one is you had mentioned in your presentation that this is in alignment with, the rezoning of the vicinity. Has this taken place before within the same neighborhood?
Everything surrounding that in Shoreline has been zoned commercial. For some reason, these parcels were skipped over. They were never changed, but everything around it has been some sort of commercial designation since our incorporation. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And so on page 8B-12 in your testimony, you stated that the proposed rezone will not adversely affect the public health, safety, or general welfare, and will not be materially detrimental to the use of the property. So I was just wondering what matrix drives that. I don't see the support chart or data, but what really drives you to conclude on that testimony?
So typically when we look at that criteria, for example, it wouldn't affect the public health, safety, or general welfare. We look at what zone could potentially accommodate those uses that don't interact well with what's existing around the site. So, if someone proposed an industrial type zoning and wanted to put some industrial type use adjacent to a park or townhomes, that may be detrimental to those uses around. But in this case, where they're asking for a neighborhood business zone, it really is consistent with what is currently existing around there and what can be built around there. So that's kind of where that recommendation comes from.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Ramsdell.
Thank you, Mayor Scully. And thank you, Councilmember McConnell, for the points you brought up regarding parking and the egress and ingress issues related to that site. Having gone in and out of that, using that post office parking lot frequently during the week, it's really, it's tough getting out of that parking lot. There's no way you're going to make a left-hand turn. It's pretty scary. It's even hard to take a right-hand turn if you want to go north on Aurora, because you have to cross 2 lanes of traffic in order to get to that left-hand turn to go north on Aurora. So I'm kind of wondering, is it, there's Whitman right there. Would it be possible to like redirect traffic on Whitman heading north and then somehow divert them on, to spill them onto Aurora, making a right-hand turn? Without looking at a map, I have a hard time kind of envisioning it, but is there a way to kind of redirect traffic to instead of having spill out on 145th? And I can't imagine, I would really think that even though there might be a right-hand turn only, I have a feeling that folks are going to try to make that left-hand turn out of those cars. So I'm really concerned about the safety issues around egress and ingress into that spot, and if there's going to be adequate parking too, because there just really is no off-street parking in that neighborhood. So those are a couple of things that kind of come to mind.
Right, especially once you start looking at wider pedestrian sidewalks and more rapid bus service on 145th. I think the site lends itself well to having primary driveway access off Whitman, like you said, and have the building basically front 145th with no access, kind of see how I see it laying out. But all those things are really analyzed closely when there's an actual building proposal there on the site. But just initial conversations with the property owners and potential developers, it's a driveway off Whitman makes a lot of sense, in having that building almost like a zero setback on the sidewalk along 145th, which would make a lot of sense.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Roberts, did you have a comment, or was it addressed? It was addressed. Okay. I will join the voices indicating support for this. We occasionally see these, whether on Planning Commission or here, and these are sort of anomalous zoning things, and they're often left over from what King County did at some point in the past, which probably made a lot of sense at the time it happened. But in this case, we've got just a block of 4 parcels that don't really match the parcels around them. And we've seen ones where it's literally landlocked in the middle of a block. This isn't quite that bad, but this reads to me like something that was held over from a set of facts that just aren't there anymore. And so I share the concerns with ingress and egress. I know that they're probably already there. I mean, there are already folks living there who are doing something, and they can turn either left or right out of their own driveways. Hopefully, when we get a project proposal, we can make things better rather than worse. But for me, that concern alone isn't enough to hold this back. So I would, at the moment, I intend to vote in favor of it. Mr. Saffron, I believe this has to come back as an action item, not on the consent calendar. Is that accurate? Or Ms.
That I'm not sure of.
It is actually currently scheduled on consent, if council is comfortable with
It is on consent. Okay, all right. Does anyone object to having it on consent? Just because some of us are new, the consent calendar is generally voted as a block. Any council member can remove an item from the consent calendar at any time up until the vote on it is final. Just takes one person to object. But we try not to put things on the consent calendar if we know that council members are going to want them discussed in advance. So is there anybody who would like to see this as an action item rather than consent? Councilmember Ramsdell.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Scully. Yeah, I'd like to see it as an action item. I'm hoping that there'll be a little bit more information in the future when it becomes time to vote on this, to have an idea whether the developer or the potential of commercial versus residential, strictly residential, would be preferred. Because I know if neighborhood business can be either all residential or a combination of residential and commercial. And I would just like to have a little bit more clarification on whether if the kind of tides are going in the direction of all residential or kind of a mixed commercial residential. If maybe you'd be able to answer that now and we could have it on a consent calendar.
Well, I can tell you with almost certainty that the property owners currently are going to market this property and sell it to somebody else. So I don't know if we can answer that with any certainty.
Mr. Saffron, I believe on a closed record that the opportunity to do that has passed, to the opportunity to get new information into the record has passed. Is that accurate?
I believe you're correct on that.
Ms. King?
That's correct. This is a closed record hearing. And so the information before the council is that was in the record previously.
Right. Councilmember Roberts.
Thank you. Just to clarify my recollection, we are only supposed to judge the project based on what's in the record, not on what might be built or based on what is allowed within the zone, not based on any particular project or any particular application.
That is correct as well, because you're not going to be putting any specific additional restrictions on this particular development, but it's the zone that you're looking at and approving this proposal and what's all allowed.
Thank you. So it could be, as Councilmember Ramsdell described, it could be all commercial, it could be residential. It's whatever neighborhood business allows.
If it allows all commercial, I'd have to defer to the planning department on that one.
That's correct.
Councilmember Ramsdell.
Thank you, Mayor Scully. Yeah, with that clarification, I am comfortable having it on the consent calendar.
Okay, thank you. And I believe we're all in agreement that it'd be on consent calendar. If anyone decides they want it pulled off, all you need to do is notify the city manager or me, or do it the night of the meeting. Otherwise, we will see this on consent on, I think you said the 24th, Mr. Saffron?
That's correct.
Okay, great. All right, and with that, I believe that concludes this evening's meeting and we're adjourned.